When you do nothing, nothing happens. Best time to take action is now.
This is the time to work on you and your business.
So I've created a group,
An online academy for professionals and entrepreneurs. Power Partners will help you
to start helping yourself.
Helped me change my life and my business.
Not a Toastmasters, it's not a BNI, it's not any of these, but it is. So it's all this stuff in one place.
Get the results that you deserve right now. So what are you waiting for? Let's make it happen.
see you in Power Partners.
My name is Serena Buffalino. I am the founder of Help Heal Humanity. My career started off as a special education teacher. When my students found out that there were kids in this world that did not have the right to go to school, inspired them. The concept behind the Haiti School Building Project was a small handful of youth in Toronto would help a small handful of youth here in Haiti. The Haiti School Building Project finally opened up last year, September 2018. It has successfully been running for 7 months now, and what I have seen is nothing shy of beautiful. One person with the support of others can literally transform the planet.
Good Friday, everyone. Your real worth isn't defined by your net worth. What makes you valuable is how you use what you have been given. All of us have gifts. Make sure you're making the most of yours. Have an amazing Friday.
It is now the bottom of the hour. I'm excited to welcome Nancy Matthews to our program today. Nancy is an author of a book. I'm going to go ahead and highlight it in the carousel for you guys. There it is, The One Philosophy. I want to talk to Nancy not only about the re-release of the book, but also what it's been like for her to share the message with all of you guys. Nancy, great to have you on with us.
Hello, hello, hello. So happy to be here.
Good morning. Bonjour. Comment ça va? Et toi? Ça va bien? No. Je suis heureux. I am happy. Ni hao. Hola. Bienvenue. I'm sorry. Ni hao. Hola. Ohio. Bienvenue. Wan Ying. Bienvenidos. Yokoso. And welcome. Welcome to another exciting episode of Gem Hunter Stories. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller. And each week, I get the magnificent opportunity to take you on a journey. to places you've never been before, to hear stories you've never heard before. Each week, I get the magnificent opportunity to take you on a mental, physical, and spiritual adventure into the art, science, history, and magic of gemstones, precious metals, and fine jewelry. And I use those three things together in order to help you discover the value of your own stories. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to start out by telling you, get a piece of paper and a pencil because you don't want to miss anything. In fact, those of you who want to train with me in the future, I will give you a 10% discount on your sessions once this is the key, understanding what I'm going to do today. This will be your first test in order to train with me. So let's just get right into it. As you guys know, this Saturday, I competed in the international speech contest. I was the let's see. This is always interesting every time. Let's see. Share screen. No, that's not what I want to do. Let's see. Is it working? Interesting. Anyhow, I competed in the international speech contest this week, and as you may have heard, as we may have heard, I am the 2022 International Speech Contest champion. This is the trophy that I got. It's really, this is amazing. Just the size of it and just everything. And so what we're going to talk about today, as you say, the process of creating a winning international speech contest speech. Because what normally happens lots of times is when you compete in the international speech contest, and each year, for those of you who are not Toastmasters, each year, Toastmasters is a speaking organization. It's been around for 100 years. And each year we have speech contests. You have 4 of them. You have the evaluation speech contest where you're evaluating someone else. You have table topics where you have to speak extemporaneously about any topic. Then you have the humorous speech contest, which to me is the hardest contest because you have to make people laugh or humorous for 7 minutes and 30 seconds. And then you have the cream of the crop, the ultimate, the international speech contest, where there's 320,000 people in Toastmasters, about 170 countries. And all these countries, all these clubs, all these people in these clubs will compete for this thing called the International Speech Contest, which ultimately leads to the World Championship, where you become the world champion of public speaking. And the number one question that people ask me, first they say, congratulations, how do you feel? How does it feel? Things like this. But the number one question that people ask me, and let me just go through some of it. So here's the certificate that I received. Wonderful. Kamaria, thank you so much for doing such a great contest. This is me winning that contest, winning the thing. It was absolutely magnificent. Here is with myself, to my right, to my left would be the International Speech Contest president. I'm sorry, Toastmasters president, which is really interesting. When I won in 2012, I took a picture with the international president at that time. So 10 years later, here I am standing with the international president of Toastmasters again, and 2 world champions. To my right would be Ed Tate right over here. And then this is Craig Valentine. One of them won. I think Craig won in 1999 and Ed won in 2000. I might have been reversed. So here I am with those world champions and the international Toastmasters international president or president-elect. And here is this is a picture you don't see that often. 3 black men together, feeling and experiencing the power of this moment. The gentleman in the back, Greg Thompson. Greg Thompson was the person in my first contest in 2009, Greg Thompson beat me, and I was devastated. Oh my God, I was so angry with him, and yet we are such great friends now and brothers now because of this experience. Ivory Gwynn, and Greg is now the district director of District 103. Ivory Gwynn, who was the first Black man I saw when I first joined Toastmasters, I thought he was the supreme commander of Toastmasters because everybody was like, Ivory, Ivory, Ivory for everything. And he went on to become a district director 2 times. So this is a picture that I'll always cherish of all 3 of us coming together. People ask me, the first question is, why do you compete? Why do you do this? I've been competing since the beginning. I started in Toastmasters I go to 2007. I did a couple of speeches. I left 2008, came back 2009. So I've been competing for all these years, in the 13 years since I started. And people always ask me why. Why do you compete? And they'll say things like, well, why don't you compete? Like, you'll always get someone to say, well, there's no money. You're not making any money. What do you get out of it? And I always smile when they say that, because if you're thinking like that, then you don't really understand what the contest is. Because you're right. You don't get a dime. In fact, you wind up paying money because practicing, time, everything else, energy, a lot of sleepless nights, getting up 3 o'clock in the morning. And when people say to me, what do you get out of it? What they're not understanding is the process. The International Speech Contest is really a transformative event. You're not the same person you were when you first decided to compete, because what the International Speech Contest makes you do is truly look inside of yourself. It is as excuse me, as anybody who knows me knows that the person I was 15 years ago and the person I am was totally different, completely different. I was angry. It was insane. Sometimes the anger inside of me was breathtaking. Sometimes I look back at myself and go, damn, for real? This contest, this organization changed my life. And that's what I want to talk about today, because a lot of people will come to me and say, over the years, it's amazing how many people come to me and say, I want to be the next world champion of public speaking. And they just literally skip the International Speech Contest. Just like, this is the year. I can think of 3 people off the top of my head that just came to me from nowhere. They've been in Toastmasters a year, 2.5 years, don't know anything. And they'll say, yep, I'm going to be the next world champion of public speaking. You're like, okay. Because I smiled, not saying that they can't do it, not saying they don't have the skills, not saying they don't have the voice. It's just what they're not understanding is the process. And that's what this show is about. You don't value. The reason why you don't understand the process is because you don't understand what it is. You don't understand that the main thing I teach on the show is value. So we're going to go through the process. Because what the International Speech Contest makes you do is take an idea, and take it from a rock, take it from just something where it's just a grain of sand or rough diamond in your mind, sometimes way in the back of your mind, and you make it into something spectacular. You make it into something extraordinary within yourself. It's not about this. It's not about this. I got a whole bunch of these. This is my 6th championship as far as on a district level. God knows how many individuals, maybe I think I counted 20. I got like 40, 45 of these. I got 2 more in the way. That's not what it's about. It's not about, obviously there's no money. It's not about the trophies. It's about the process of becoming, of taking an idea that's in your head, something that means something to you, and sharing it with the world in such a way where the world hears it. So again, 2009, I had been in Toastmasters for 4 months, and I had already began to see how this thing called the International Speech Contest could take me on a whole nother level. To me, it was just like becoming a Jedi. But I didn't understand. The reason why I lost was because I didn't understand how to tell a story. There was parts of it that I missed. For years I was mad at Greg because he beat me, but I realized I beat myself because I didn't understand the process. You have 7 minutes and 30 seconds to talk to God. And I say that to all my clients because there is nothing like standing on the stage. And as in my speech, it says standing on the stage of your life and for one brief shining moment, creating a sound. Because when you understand, and I've talked about As a Man Thinketh, you guys know my book, when you talk about telling that story, you have to understand whether you're at a club, in an office, or a church, or just a schoolroom, your words have power. Your words have power, and they don't just go forward to the audience, they go up to God. So when you are deciding to compete in the international speech contest, don't just take it like, oh yeah, okay, I'm going to compete, and you're going to throw something together because you think that your voice, your talent, you are anointed, and somehow it's just going to come. No. What is it that's inside of you that you would want to talk to God for? If you had 7 minutes and 30 seconds to speak to God, what are you going to say? What are you going to say? You can't just talk about nothing. I mean, just simple things like, oh, the Cubs won today, or oh my God, did you see what happened with Kanye? How does it speak to you? How does that thing that you feel speak to you? How has it changed you? How has it transformed you? And that's why I'm saying that International Speech Contest is a transformative event, because you have to look inside of yourself and ask yourself, what are you going to say? When I saw the movie Amadeus in September 19th, 1984, but it wasn't until 2010, after I competed in 2009 and lost and was still pretty salty about it, really, I began to create a speech called Creating Your Symphony. And when I looked up the word symphony, this is the beginning of the whole concept of what I'm doing today and what I've been doing literally for all around the world for years, is the understanding of what the definition of a symphony is. A symphony, look it up. This is directly from Webster's, a harmony of sounds, especially with instruments. We know that, but there's also a harmony of any kind. So when you decide to compete in the International Speech Contest, and please understand, this is applicable across the board, everything, every time you open your mouth, whether you're talking to your husband, to your wife, to your children, to your employees. You saw Serena Buffalino. Serena Buffalino is a middle school teacher in Toronto, Canada, and she's changing lives all the way in Haiti because whatever she said to motivate volunteers, she created a sound. It's a symphony. People believe in what she's saying. So when you speak in the International Speech Contest or wherever, in front of a group of people, you're creating a symphony. So that's the first thing you have to understand. You're creating a symphony. I did a speech, and there's a speech where I say that I don't play music like Mozart. I will never be a genius, but I understand what it means to take something in my head, ideas, emotions, experiences, and compress it down into something that only lasts for 7 minutes and 30 seconds. I know what it feels like to take that thing that I've created and see how it resonates with people. People I don't even know, people whose backgrounds and experiences are totally different than my own. I know what it feels like to have people come up to me after my speech is over because I made their lives just a little bit brighter, just a little bit more beautiful. I know what it feels like to create a sound. That's what it is. So when you make the decision to compete, you have to understand we're not just expecting speech number 3, we're expecting symphony number 3. So the opening, sound. And we're going to go through this because I want to get to the end, because that's what I normally miss out on because I get so into this. So sound is the initial direction. When you make that decision to speak on that level, the international speech contest, think about what it means. They didn't say the 147th Street speech contest. They didn't see the Baptist Church speech contest. They didn't see AT&T corporate Toastmasters speech contest. They said the international speech contest. So in your mind, you have to understand what you're doing. And when you make that decision, you have to decide which direction that you're going to take. If you want to talk about you fell off your bike when you were 7 and what that meant to you, then you have to understand, look at what the significance of that means to you and how does that relate to the audience, the sound. And I got that. Again, I love Mozart. Mozart talked to God. I got it again. The movie came out in 1984. 1984, September 19th. I was there because I was always a fan of Mozart. But it wasn't in 2010 when I saw this scene. Antonio Salieri, when he described Mozart's music. And I was literally writing this speech not for a contest, just for Toastmasters, called Creating Your Symphony. But it wasn't until 26 years later, I saw the movie in 84, but 26 years later, when I heard Salieri describe Mozart's music, it changed everything for me. He said, on the page, it looked nothing. The music simple, almost comic. Just the pulse. Bassoons, basset horns, like something from an old rusty squeeze box. And then suddenly, high above it, an oboe. A single note hanging there, unwavering, until a clarinet took it over, sweetened into a phrase of such delight. This is no composition from a performing monkey. This is a music I never heard, filled with such longing, such unfulfillable longing that it seemed to me as if I was listening to the voice of God. The voice of God. And what's so significant about that, what blew my mind when I saw it was, we don't know. Antonio Salieri was a real person who actually knew Mozart, worked with Mozart. He was an unbelievable composer in his own right. But what got me was, here was the words coming out of an actor, F. Murray Abraham, who won an Academy Award just for this movie. Whoever wrote, we don't know what Salieri actually said. I don't know if that was a direct quote, but what I do know is that the screenwriter, when he created that scene, he made those words come out of Salieri's head, because that's the way Mozart's music strikes people 200 years later. 200 years later, in that same year, 2010, that's when Comcast, when they created their Xfinity system, they used Mozart's music. Look it up. Go to YouTube, Comcast 2010 commercial. You'll see Santus. And when I heard it, I was like, that's Mozart. As if I was listening to the voice of God. Imagine creating something like that. That's what made me understand that it's all about a sound. When you look at this diamond, this is a rough diamond. Look at it. It looks like nothing that you would put on your finger, your neck, your ears, anywhere. You have to see it. You have to understand its potential. You have to see what it is. And you have to see that this diamond took 2.5 years to decide to become that. The Lesbian Larona, 302 carats. internally flawless, D color. And someone had to see that. And that's what you have to do when you are in the international speech contest. You have to see what you're doing. You have to hear it in your head. It's that drum beat that keeps going back and forth. That's when I start my speech, it's always something that I feel in my heart, and it just keeps coming back again. That's the sound. Passion is believing in your message, that this is something that you believe in, that you see, that you want everybody to know about. That's passion. I can't tell you how many times I see or hear speeches at that level, or in a corporation or schools, and I'm training my students, and they'll just say magnificent things, but they'll say it like, well, you know, this is what I do, and I just do it. No. I told you my good friend Toastmaster Chad. Hey, Chad. Chad did a speech about Jim Thorpe, the greatest athlete in the 20th century, who was a Native American. But Chad, who also is a Native American, didn't speak about that. Tell me what that means to you. Passion. Again, you know, if I'm going to marry somebody, I'm not going to give them a ring and say, hey, listen, girl, you know, we've been together for 2 weeks. I like you, you like me. What are you doing next Tuesday? You want to get married? No woman's going to say, yeah, okay, I'll marry you. There's no passion. So when you creating your speech, when you're creating your symphony, it has to feel it. The audience has to feel it. And that brings us to the hero. The hero is the bridge between what you're saying and how does that resonate with the audience and everybody. And you have to understand, when you're competing, when you're in the international speech contest, the first thing you have to understand clearly is everybody's not going to hear you. No matter, I don't care who you are. I don't care how many championships you won. I don't care how many places you've been. I don't care if you're a professional storyteller, voiceover person. It doesn't matter. You got 7 minutes and 30 seconds to create something. You have to be the bridge, because there's always going to be somebody in the room. You have to understand that no matter how great your speech is, they're going to look at you like, yeah, okay, whatever. And you have to understand that. And that is the greatest feeling in the world, because things that, at least for me, things that I was feeling, the severe insecurity things that I was feeling inside of myself, I felt like I was a rock. In my mind, my mother made me feel like this is who I was. For years, for decades, that's who, just a rock. I didn't even know I was a diamond, just a rock. But it wasn't until I started understanding this, I realized this is who I am inside. And you have to, and the audience has got to feel that. When I talk about Napoleon, there's no doubt that there's somebody that I love. When I talked about Roberta Flack's music, and you know, you felt the sun rose in our eyes, in your eyes, and the moon and the stars. There's no doubt in your mind that whatever Roberta Flack was, whoever she was talking about, oh my God. It's amazing. The antagonist. And we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on the antagonist because we have before. The antagonist is what you're always going to go through. And there's two ways you can look at it. You can look at the antagonist, you know, when you say, the old saying is, you know, haters are going to hate. Take it to the next level. Use the antagonist. I was not going to compete this year. I was done. I had 5 championships. You know, I've done all the things that I'm like, cool. But over the 6 years, the last time I actually competed was like 2016. I came in second place in the international speech contest. But I began to realize that people were taking it like, just, you know, I'll just compete. It's okay. And I was like, really? That's it? That's it? So the antagonist to me was understanding that there's always going to be people that want this. They want this. They want to be the next world champion of public speaking or the international speech, but they don't understand the process. They don't understand the work. So the antagonist is understanding that people want what you got. People got your title. I have a person I know who, his goal is to have as many championships as me. That was his goal. And so that was the antagonist. And you can use that to motivate you. When people tell me I'm going to beat you, Barry, I always say thank you. Thank you. Because I understand that the antagonist is the reason why you do it. It's the thing you have to overcome. It's the reason why you practice. I had a person this time who told me, I'm going to beat you, Barry. And I'm like, wonderful, because that tells me that I got to practice at least 200-300 more times. And I'm serious. Because when you understand how you can use the antagonist, Luke Skywalker would be nothing without Darth Vader. Darth Vader is what made him greater. Darth Vader, the whole concept of it, when he sat there on that, for those of you who are Star Wars fans, when he sat there on that precipice with his arm cut off, his arm was cut off. He's on this precipice, literally looking at the abyss. And here's this man, this robot, this machine. Darth Vader was 6'7". Yeah. And he just said, Luke, you're not yet, you realize your importance. You've only begun to discover your power. Join me. And together we can rule the galaxy as father and son. That was what he said. I am your father, the antagonist. And Luke had to make the decision to either follow Darth Vader or die. He had to overcome that, the antagonist. But what we're going to talk about, so before I get there, what we're going to talk about is, or what you have to understand is, you're always going to have an antagonist. You're always going to have the obstacle. You're always going to have somebody who's better looking than you, who has a better sound than you, who has a better vocal quality than you, who might be more well-known than you. There was a guy in Toastmasters, he had a beautiful British accent. And I prayed, God, please don't let me have to go against him, because his voice was music. His voice sounded like, I'm not even gay. I loved his voice. He's just so British. And I was like, please, God, don't let me have to go against him, because I'd have to come up with something else in order to beat that. The antagonist. Use that as your power, your base. When somebody's telling you no, just say thank you. Because without that, the story doesn't run. This was my greatest championship because of the antagonist that I had to go against and all the things that were being said. And it's just like, thank you. This was 2:00. And that person made me get up 2:00 in the morning. That person made me practice in the rain, walking through some of the rainstorms. That person made me think, no, I don't want to. That's how it works. In order to, if you have any hope of winning the international speech contest. And then there's, so the next elements that you normally don't get a chance to really flush out, we're going to talk is it starts with awareness. And we're going to talk more about that when we come back from the other side.
Imagine what it would feel like to do something, to make something, to build something, to design something, to invent something, to teach something, to write something, to draw something, to dream something, to discover something, to create something in your life so profound, so magnificent, so extraordinary, that someone years, decades, centuries later describes your work, your symphony, your sound, as if they were listening to the voice of God.
right, thank you. And every time I see that commercial, first of all, thank you to my executive producer, wonderful friend Barbara Beckley for putting that together. But every time I see the commercial now, I'm spoiled because I want to be able to speak and I should be able to see the words just come up out there. And I tell my kids, don't you see the words? Just take the notes. No. Awareness. Awareness is that moment when you realize that this is not something that you can do. This is something that you have to do. When I said the International Speech Contest is a transformative event, because 12 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I would have never been able to do what I did. Because I would have been there. I used to sweat so much that my clothes would be soaking wet. I mean, soaking wet. My heart I would always feel like I didn't have enough moisture in my mouth because it's just the feeling. And now I realize that I can do this. I'm not saying I don't get nervous. Oh my God. I'm not saying I don't worry about it. There's never that. Never that. If you don't worry about it, then you know you're going to lose. If you come, people say, oh, Barry, you're so, people say, oh, you're so arrogant. No, if you realize how many times I practice, if you realize the reason why I lost in 2016 is because I had an anxiety attack. The first time, I've been to war, Iraq, Afghanistan, never had an anxiety attack. I'm sitting there at the International Speech Contest 2016, and I'm drinking a water bottle, and my hand was shaking like that. I just was so terrified that I was going to forget my speech somewhere in the middle and just have to walk off the stage. So awareness is when you have gone through so many things in your life that the message, what you want to say, your symphony is something that you have to do. If Mozart didn't play that music, it would have never happened to me 220 years later. You can't if you're going to use something in your speech, if you're going to do, quote, Maya Angelou or Barack Obama or Beethoven, you got to tell what that person has done for you and how did you get there? How did you get there? Awareness is that moment when you just say, here you are. Remember that scene from Idlewild? Have you ever seen the movie Idlewild? And the singer and Paula Patton goes up there and she's nervous and then she just starts to bell. You can see this energy shift when she's like, do, real. And then she gets into it. That's awareness. It's such, I wish that everyone on the planet could just feel whatever you do. You're a mom, you're a firefighter, you're a police officer, you're a doctor, you're a nurse, you're a teacher. That moment when this is what you have to do. And all of us has felt it. But what the International Speech Contest makes you do is understand, almost have the expectation. If you do the work, if you do the process, if you work at it, that moment will come where you just understand that, yeah, this is it. The most important person you have to tell a story to is yourself. We're not all members of Toastmasters. We don't all get a chance to compete in speech contests, but you do every time you do the things that you do in your life. That conversation with your husband, that conversation with your wife, or your business partner, your best friend. That's what you have to do, that business that you want to build. If you want to build a hot dog business, you have to understand that this hot dog, your hot dog business, is the hot dog business. This is the thing that people do. And if you don't sell hot dogs, nobody is going to. Awareness. The next one, transformation. Transformation, I've always understood it, but transformation is two things. Transformation, the first part of transformation, I always talk about transformation from an external thing, whereas what you're doing to other people. But when you are competing in the International Speech Contest, the transformation is really inside of you. The transformation is really inside of you. When I won in 2012, that the transformative moment in my speech was when I was sitting right where I'm sitting right now at 3:00 in the morning on a Tuesday. And I was writing out the line in that speech where I said, I used to envy the people that could sing and dance because I can't sing and I can't dance. But nobody wants to hear biochemistry from a bum. Nobody wants to give you a job because you can't fill out the second line of that application. You know, the one that says address. And I remember sitting right here at 3:00 in the morning, and just bawling because I remember what that felt like. I had to go back. And so you had to understand the transformative processes that go on inside of you. That's what you need to bring if you have any hope of winning the international speech contest and more or less the world. The transformation has to start inside of you, and what people will feel is your transformation. There are people who know how crazy I was, and they look at me. Ask Barbara, text her, ask a whole bunch of people. Just like, what was Barry like 10 years ago? They were like, girl, please, that Negro. Barry was special, and I was. So when they see the transformation is when they begin to see the change inside of you. And then they say, yeah, I can do that. Do you know what it felt like to do my speech, this speech, and because we taped it first and then they showed it on Saturday. And when I got to the end of it, there were people literally saying the words before I said it. That's transformation. There are people who are saying, wow, let me do this. That's transformation. It's not an ego thing. It's a understanding the power of stories. When you tell a story, that is the most powerful thing that you can do because you're reaching people. When Serena Buffalino tells the story of helping humanity, look what she said simply, that kids in Toronto could change the lives of kids in Haiti. That was her understanding, and her message, whatever that is transformative within inside of her. And then she took that message and gave it to a whole bunch of other people that said, yeah, let's do that. Let's create that. Let's build that. That's transformation. And when you do it, when you create a sound, that's when I say in the speech that I just did, imagine creating something in your life that lets the whole world know that once upon a time you were here. And you did so much more than just exist. And it chokes me up because so many of us live our lives just quiet desperation. We just go and we go every day until we just die. And you know, almost 1 million people have died due to coronavirus. So those of us who are still here, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I don't care what you do. I don't care if mowing the lawns is what you're a lawn. I don't care what you do. You're the guy who drives the number 26 bus downtown. Imagine creating something, an environment, an experience that when you get on that bus, that person just feels safe. That person feels like, yes, I am going to get to my destination because bus driver Barry just has embodied this job. And guess what happens? Transformation is when other bus drivers say, you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to be that. As I say in my speech, Mozart had a jacked up life. You wouldn't say, oh, I want to be Mozart. What? He died at 35 years old, tuberculosis. He was broke most of the time. And look what he did. Look how he's transformed people 200 years later. That's transformation. Think about the people, whether we talk about African American history, Native American history, Asian American history, white people, women. Just think about Ketanji Brown Jackson. I keep going back to her. That's transformative. There's some little black girls. There's some little Hispanic girl or girl of color. That's my niece might look at her one day and go, Wabi, I want to be like her. That's transformation. She don't know anything about my niece, but what she did transformed the way she thought. Sound. The name of my speech was a sound. That's what resonates. That's what resonates. When the end of my speech here this time, I literally said, I can't wait to hear your music. I can't wait to be inspired by what you've created, transformed by what you've done. I just want to be in the room on the day when you have decided to let the whole world know that despite all the trials and tribulations that you've gone through in your life, you still believed. You believed in yourself. You believed in what you were creating. You believed in your message. And you realized because you realized somewhere along the journey of your life that it was going to take all your strength, all your power, all your energy to finally find the courage to stand on the stage of your life and for one brief shining moment create a sound. And when I said that, and we were looking at the recording of it, and I'm sitting there, and because it was just a crescendo, I didn't create that. I didn't say, oh, okay, this is at this point I'm going to do this. It was just from within inside of me. And when I said, for one brief shining moment, create, and it was like all the air was out of my lungs and I had to bring it back just to be able to say a sound. And when I was sitting in that room, at least 7 people, I heard them say a sound. In the same way I was saying it. That's the last sound. That's what resonates. When you get the trophy, all the trophy is a reminder to you that you did that. Once upon a time, you created something beautiful. Once upon a time. And to be able to do that again, that is what changes you. The difference between me competing this year and me competing in all the other contests was because this was the first time there was an awareness inside of me that it was something that I could do. That if I did the work, if I did the process, if I dedicated to myself to it, this would be my last international speech contest. Not because, people, you see boxers and athletes and they come back after winning a championship, because I always thought that it was never going to be as good as the first time. That what happened in 2012 could never happen again. And I realized that wasn't, I needed to do it. I needed to enjoy the process. I needed to see if I could sit down and have the dedication, the perseverance that it took to create something like that. To take away all the noise that people were saying about me, to me. I'm going to beat you. I'm this. I'm the next world champion, all this stuff. You got to limit all that other noise that's in your head and create your symphony, your sound. Imagine doing that in your life. Not just the international. That's just an example that I can show people to take them through. Imagine this is what you can do in your life. This is what you can do for yourself and the people around you, your community. You can create a sound. Think about how many people in history. That's why I talk about art, science, history, and magic. Think about all the people in history who are long since dead. Cleopatra, we've talked about. Napoleon, we've talked about. Women pirates, we've talked about. Madame Marie Curie, Obama. I mean, just think about the people that you know just from one name, because they created a sound. And whether they're Katherine Johnson, when she got that piece of chalk, and the whole American space program was depending on this little black girl in the time of racism and people being hung because of the color of their skin. This little black girl was the impetus to the whole entire American space program. Centuries from now, when we're living on Mars or some other planet, Star Trek, Star Wars, literally started with that little black girl who knew how to do math. That's a sound. That's what it felt like. That's what it felt like to compete in the international speech contest. That is what I hopefully will inspire people to do. When you make that decision to do that, just don't just think about you're going to be the next. You may be the next. I'm not saying don't have a goal. I'm not saying don't imagine yourself doing it. No, that's not what I'm saying. But the only way you're going to get there is because you have to go through the process. In order to go through the process, you have to first understand the story of it. What is it? What does it mean? Other than that, you're just talking. I can't tell you how many people said, I'm going to be the next international speech contest winner. And they went home empty-handed. Why? Because they were so busy concentrating on everything else or beating me. They didn't concentrate on their message. And the audience heard that. So, and what I want to do is just spend a few minutes talking about this subject and telling you about something that Barbara and I created as a result of, because these conversations, usually after the show's over, we usually talk God knows how long afterwards. And out of that came this thing, what we call the Love Lab. The Love Lab is a show that we have on Friday nights at 10 o'clock. And it's called the Love Lab, not the antagonist lab, not the argumentative lab, but it's conversations that we're having with people using these principles, talking about men and women, talking about relationships, talking about communications, and we've been doing it for a few weeks now. And at first I didn't think it was going to really fly, but I was really surprised and honored by people who wrote me emails and said, "Hey, I missed a couple weeks because I was training for the contest." And I was so honored when people text me. Carolyn Riley, who I talked about last week, Carolyn said, "Hey, you still doing the Love Lab? What's going on? I missed you. I missed the show." And that's when I began to, wow, because the Love Lab is a place where it's a safe place where we can communicate value. What do women want and need? What do men want and need? It's so literally, and I was thinking about it the other day, what the Love Lab is, it's that early part in a relationship where you just first meet that person and you're on your best behavior. You know, you're, and I'm not saying you met because you want to date, you just met. And you're on an airplane, you're on your seat is 6A and her seat, and this woman comes up or this man comes up and they're sitting in 6B, and you're having this communication, and you're taking a 9-hour flight to Paris, so you're forced to sit together. You're forced to, if you choose to communicate, and you're listening to each other. You're listening to each other, and from those conversations come relationships, become greater understanding, because you had to listen. And because of the time, because of, you got people around you, hopefully you're not going to act a fool on a plane and get thrown off or whatever, but you're listening. And what you're really doing is the same principles that you're doing in Toastmasters, the same principles that you're doing in the international speech contest. You're telling the person what's important to you, what you believe in, the way you see the world. That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. And so that's what the Love Lab is on Fridays at 10 p.m. Just come on. I'll send you out posts and come on and just give us who you are. What's important to you? What does it mean to you? And again, if you're interested in training with me or getting a copy of the 7 Elements of Storytelling, send me an email. I'll do better on returning email. Sometimes I get, again, I was so busy, but this will change your life. Again, you may not be doing it for a trophy, but you're doing it to engage and empower who you are. And if you do it right, if you're willing to go through the process, you will create a sound. You will resonate for people in your community and people around you. So I know we went over a whole lot. And again, as this show continues on, I'll be talking about different elements of a speech, of a story, and using gemstones. But again, my name is Barry Mixon, Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller. And what I want you to do, your homework assignment will always be to take time to look at yourself. Take time to see the things that you've done and the things that you've created in your life, the time that you've been here. See the things that people around you in your community, your husband, your wife, your kids, your relatives, see what their neighbors, what they've done, and begin to discover the value of not only their story, but more importantly, your story. So until next week, hope to see you Friday, 10 o'clock on the Love Lab. Until then, bye-bye.